Welcome to the Powerhouse Theatre Collaborative's latest Voice of the Actors podcast. Stay with us now as we introduce and explore the Colonial Theatre's resident company's upcoming productions, A Midsummer Night's Dream and The Play That Goes Wrong. Written some 400 years apart, it's hard to think of two plays more different than these, and yet there are some common comedy threads inside them, and that's worth unpacking. I'm Dana Gardner, your moderator, and I'm a member of the Powerhouse Theatre Collaborative's Board of Directors and a frequent performer and backstage contributor. Please join me now in welcoming our guests. We're here with Joel Awaskowicz, director of Midsummer, which is in this presentation will be set in Athens, Louisiana, complete with an American folk music background and an ensemble of dancing fairies. This Midsummer in winter will be like nothing you've ever seen before. Welcome, Joel.
Yo, Dana, thanks so much for having me. It's good to be back.
Likewise, good to have you. Also joining us is Brian Halperin, Powerhouse co-founder and co-director of The Play That Goes Wrong. Good to have you back, Brian.
Hey, thanks, Dana.
Joel, let's start with you. You know, Shakespeare famously said that the world is a stage, but in your upcoming production of Midsummer Night, the stage is an entirely new world. So tell us how you came up with this life on the bayou for your setting and why this play so easily lends itself to far-reaching adaptations.
Sure, Dana, thanks. I think a lot of folks, they hear Shakespeare and they lock back into like a memory from high school. And you've got images of, old-timey actors in, their tights and cod pieces and fancy hats. And you imagine like, oh, Shakespeare, that's how it's meant to be done. No, that's just how it was done back then because it was the norm for the theater. What I love about Shakespeare, and I think this is really the core reason of why we keep coming back to it, is because it's almost like a coloring book. The outline is there, but everything else is blank. Everything else is up to you. There are no stage directions. There are no notes on this is exactly what the outfit looks like. You've just got the text to work with, the text of what the actors say, and then you're free to run and play. So when I approach Shakespeare, I'm always asking myself, what have we not seen yet? What is there left to explore? What remains possible? And so when I imagined Midsummer, it launched me back to my undergrad years living in Memphis, Tennessee, where summer was a force to be reckoned with. The heat waves, the AC getting knocked out, the tornadoes that came through, the buzz of cicadas, the humidity on the Mississippi, all of this stuff is my remembering of the most intense summer. And indeed, this play is about a really intense summer. And then I thought of the fact that I've never seen a midsummer that wasn't just kind of, like idyllic and like, let's frolic in the moss and the forest seeming kind of like a little wonderland. And I thought, what if we leaned into the energy and the power and the mystery of the swamp? My favorite productions of Shakespeare always incorporate music because Shakespeare's productions incorporated music. There were always live instrumentalists, and sure, they were playing instruments that to us now would sound, maybe a little old and stodgy. But it was built to be a sonic experience. These plays were meant to be seen and heard long before anybody even fathomed reading them. So I thought, all right, if we're taking it down into the bayou, we're going down into the, into the swamp, which, a lot of people will think of as like, yo, Heartland right here, then we're bringing the music there too. And so we're incorporating songs that audiences will recognize, like Down by the Bay and Oh Susanna and Down by the Riverside and This Little Light of Mine and You Are My Sunshine. And a lot of these kind of like classic standards, some of which have, origins rooted in spirituals. We've got live musicians performing on stage. We've got the actors singing and dancing. And so I think it's just going to be a midsummer that pulls you in because of the sound, because of the look, and because of the energy in a way that you haven't seen before. And that's my hope literally for anyone doing Shakespeare anywhere. Pull us in, let us imagine something new with you.
So not so much Shakespeare, but a lot of Delta, Mississippi blues type of atmosphere. Is this contemporary or is there a time setting for this in addition to the place setting?
What I've been telling my team, including our actors and designers, is that once you locate anything in the South, you might already be vaulted back 100 years. And that's just because this is a region steeped in tradition. And that's something that we lean into a lot as well. This is a story, like so many of Shakespeare's plays, about generational conflict, about, rich people, particularly rich men who have long-standing power that the young people are pushing back against, which makes these plays completely relatable. Sometimes it leads to a tragic end like Romeo and Juliet. Sometimes Shakespeare lets everyone off the hook with some fun twists, and that's when they turn into comedies. So we've got not a specific time setting, but you could imagine this taking place pretty much anywhere within the last 100 years down in the South, because you've got these folks, these grown-ups who are rooted in, the money and the power that they've been granted, and then the kids who are pushing against them, and then launching into what truly feels like an ancient wilderness, because the swamp is indeed timeless. It's kind of, from, time immemorial, the primordial goo, it's all right there. So when they launch in, it really is like they've traveled to a new dimension and suddenly they're vaulted back. So there will definitely be recognizable contemporary touches, but we're not, we don't have the actors launching around on cell phones. Nobody's texting each other, so that we won't get caught in any of the trappings of, technology in 2026, that might otherwise frame and kind of bind up our presentation.
So it sounds sort of like 19th century in general. So we've got Dixie, we've got music, we've got dancing, we've got songs that people will recognize, but we also have that comedy element. And a lot of the comedies that Shakespeare does has that sort of, there's a little slapstick, there's a little people being misunderstood, and then that leads everybody astray. Is there any element of comedy within Midsummer that's unique to Midsummer? Is there something about how Shakespeare crafted this comedy that makes it stand out in any way?
Yes, and this ties in so beautifully with the production that Brian is working on right now. Every now and then, Shakespeare got meta. He liked to comment on the state of the art form that he was, pronounced as a master of. He brings the theater into his play. We see this in other plays as well. In Hamlet, Hamlet summons in, a troupe of players to go ahead and present a story that's all about a king being murdered. And then he presents that to his uncle, the murderer king. And that's the trick that kind of, proves the character of Claudius to be guilty. That's a really dramatic device over there. In this version, we've got this crew called the Mechanicals, and they're pretty famous for being, totally bumbling. They are not speaking in your standard romantic poetic verse that a lot of people think of with Shakespeare, your da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, iambic pentameter. Nope, they're speaking in prose. They're speaking in the language of the common people, because indeed they are meant to be viewed as common as possible. They're clowns. And what's funny is that these are all skilled tradesmen who for some reason have decided they also want to put on a production. And so they gather together, they start staging a play. They are utterly clueless, and watching them try to figure out how to run a rehearsal, how to build characters, how to problem solve is hilarious, because they're completely inept. And for anybody who's worked in the theater before, maybe you've been in a production meeting where someone says, well, what if we, and you've seen those conversations get shut down for so many reasons. That's totally inefficient. That makes no sense with our budget. That throws off our narrative. And yet in this play, these guys are just saying yes and to everything. And so we've got an actor that, okay, well, someone has to play the wall. Oh, let's cover him in cement. And that's how he can play the wall. Perfect. Someone's going to be a lion. But wait, won't that be scary? Wait, no, we'll write a speech that says he's not really a lion. So when he comes out, they won't be scared and think he's a lion. And so they're just heaping themselves with all of these unnecessary responsibilities. And yet they are so pumped to get out there. Of course, these are also the guys who venture out to rehearse in the woods. One of them gets spelled. He turns into a donkey, has a one-night stand with a fairy, and things kind of go haywire before they put on their play. And indeed, you could call it Shakespeare's play that goes wrong. Because they get out there, the audience is heckling them to no end. They're engaging with the audience during the heckling. And the way we're presenting it, we've given each actor what feels like a game that they're playing. How is it that your individual version of the play goes very wrong or very right? So we've got actors with costume malfunctions, people who are afraid of heights, folks who drop their note cards and forget their lines, actors who get distracted because they're so enchanted by the audience. And yet somehow it all pulls together and you get this kind of magical photo finish that hopefully leaves the audience wiping away some tears because they're cackling along as you watch our actors do such a good job being so bad at acting.
Well, Brian, that gives us quite the segue. So we've often seen a play within a play in theater. And as Joel just cogently put forth, that was a common thread with Shakespeare, but the play that goes wrong takes on the play within a play in an entirely new meaning. So what's going on with this highly physical and set-intensive production?
Well, I love Joel's description of how he's using the mechanicals and what goes wrong in their play. The fun part about the play that goes wrong is, while Midsummer, we see a lot of their rehearsal process. With Play That Goes Wrong, we meet this bumbling troupe, the Cornley Amateur Dramatic Society, on opening night, trying to put on their best masterpiece yet. They admit right up front that they've had some troubles in their prior performances, but they are sure that this performance is going to go well. And from basically the opening cue, it does not. Let's put it that way. And like Joel said, the mechanicals sort of yes-anding as they plan their play. The Cornley troupe kind of yes-ands in the context of everything going wrong. They just don't acknowledge it and keep, plowing ahead as best they can. If somebody picks up the wrong prop, the next guy is just going to use that prop as the person defined it a second ago. It is full of hijinks. And when this play came to Broadway, I took the family, and we were cracking up from the opening moment through to the end. It is full of antics, full of. We like to say, Joel said, bad actors acting badly. We always say that these are actors trying their best to be good. And the tricky part is for the real actors playing these roles of not trying to just act badly, but trying to be bad actors acting good. So I think that's sort of the fun part, is that at least a few of them think they've got talent and, are doing their best to work with the less talented in the group. We don't have that problem at Powerhouse. Everybody, in our group is talented. So, but, you could imagine if there were 3 stars and 4, idiots, the 3 stars might get frustrated, but there's a much narrower line between stars and idiots in the play that goes wrong. And to some degree, they all end up being idiots.
Well, so the play that goes wrong lives up to the Powerhouse Theatre Collaborative's name, being collaborative. And you're co-directing along with Corey Lawson, the Director of Education and Community Engagement at the Winnipesaukee Playhouse in Meredith. So tell us a little bit about this being a collaboration between 2 theater companies that produce a play about plays going wrong.
Yeah, this was something that came about because Play That Goes Wrong requires a really difficult set. And as many know, we move into the Colonial generally the week of our show. And so not being able to work on this set, till the week of the performance was, sort of a non-starter for being able to do this show at the Colonial. Also, it's a very difficult set to build, but we had an opportunity to buy a set from another theater. And then we're looking for a place where, we might be able to set it up to rehearse on it prior to Tech Week. And we reached out to the Playhouse to see if they wanted to maybe share the set. And they said not only would we like to share the set, but we'd be interested in co-producing with you. So I'm actually directing. Corey is assistant directing and doing all the fight choreography and clowning. So, we both get to put our skills to the test collaboratively. But yeah, the Powerhouse is always looking for, different ways to collaborate with other nonprofits. This is really one of the first times or second time we've collaborated with another theater. We're usually collaborating with another nonprofit that is, the host in some way, or a music group like the symphony that we're collaborating with this summer in 1776. But this was an opportunity to sort of break down some, boundaries with another local community theater in the Lakes region that a lot of our people also participate with. So this was just a way to work together and try something new.
Yeah, we've seen you all collaborate with the Bank of New Hampshire stage in Concord, the Belknap Mill, Prescott Farm, Laconia Library. So it truly is not just a word in your name. It's how you operate. All right, let's go back to Joel with Midsummer. Tell us a little bit about the cast, an ensemble, a big cast. How many people and what can we expect more than just the core players from Shakespeare's original play?
We've got 31 phenomenal performers in our cast, and I love that this is a play where everyone has so much to do. Sometimes you think, oh, and then I'm playing a fairy, like I'm gonna flit around with some wings in the background, and then I'm gonna peace out, and you'll see me at curtain call. No way. The actors in this show are so engaged and so involved. We've got 15 in what we are lovingly, actually delightedly calling our swamp ensemble. These are the folks who inhabit the spirit of the swamp, 13 movers, and then 2 live musicians who are so talented and so skilled. It's really a big ask when you roll in and you say, hey, do you play an instrument? And someone says, I'm your guy. And then you say, yeah, but do you play an instrument that sounds like the Delta? Do you play an instrument that sounds like the backwoods of Mississippi? And then when somebody hauls out their acoustic guitar, their mandolin, and they let it rip, that is so thrilling. And that's what you're going to hear in this production. So I'm actually working with Jenna Regato, who is a Powerhouse regular as a choreographer, as a performer, who recently helped stage Fezziwig's After Dark as part of the Christmas Carol weekend this year or last year. So her directing our movers in the swamp ensemble has just added this electric extra layer to the production that I think is really unique. And then we've also got, among our mechanicals, they've got a theme song, and one of them, actually played by my wife, Laura, shout out to Laura, is going to be performing live on the ukulele with them. So we have so many actors bringing such unique talents to the work, and God, they're so smart too. Shakespeare's not easy. It's not an easy text, but you want to make it seem as if it were second nature to just be speaking these lines, because not only does that generate confidence in the actor, but it also assists and facilitates the understanding of your audience. You want them to sit back and say, I have nothing to worry about because I see actors worrying about nothing. And so when they go on that ride, it's like climbing on the airplane and knowing that, like, the pilot's got this. I couldn't fly it, but I know that I'm in good hands. And so we've got actors who showed up from day one, and they were already memorizing and working off book. They were asking questions, they were digging in, and they continue to find just these gems of humor and these nuances. Speaking to the collaborative nature of the work at Powerhouse Theatre Collaborative, you got to show up and meet the minds when you're doing Shakespeare. It's not something where you can fly solo. And we've got a group that is just so well networked, right? They're plugging in, the neurons are sparking. And it's really exciting to be in the rehearsals because I'm learning, I get to contribute to the learning of others. And I know that our audiences are going to walk away and say, wait a second, have I seen this play before? And because they're going to be understanding and grasping and holding on to and loving elements of this Shakespeare piece that maybe never even registered for them.
This is our second time doing Shakespeare, and, we had a really good production of Romeo and Juliet followed up by Montague and Capulet. And we definitely had people say, wow, you made Shakespeare accessible to me through that. Joel and I worked on that together. And one of the things we did was sort of have some narrators in Romeo and Juliet that gave some exposition of time and place, and who we're dealing with. So it helped audiences who maybe didn't know the characters understand it a little better. And I think, so one of our goals here was, making Midsummer equally accessible, even if we weren't going sort of the same narration route. And we knew we'd have actors who would want to be in Midsummer Night's Dream. The question was, how do we find an audience who wants to see Midsummer Night's Dream? And so before we put this on the schedule, I basically said to Joel and Courtney, they went off, Courtney, our associate producer, and sort of brainstormed. And I said, convince me we can create a Midsummer that people are going to want to see. And, they came back with this swamp idea that sounded really vibrant and dynamic and musical and fun, which was sort of the last element of, making us feel like, yeah, we should do this show. And we weren't surprised. We had over 40 people audition for the show, which, is great for a straight play with, 20 speaking roles, maybe not even. And so the turnout for auditions was great. And, we auditioned both shows at the same time. We also had over 40 people come out for The Play That Goes Wrong. Some people auditioned for both. And so we couldn't be happier with the two casts we got. And like with Midsummer, The Play That Goes Wrong actors, I challenged them to, get off book, as much as you can before we start rehearsal. The show is so physical that you're going to constantly be, limited if you have your script in your hand all the time. So both teams, I think, are really going gangbusters at taking their role seriously. And in Play That Goes Wrong, we also have our own kind of version of the Swamp Ensemble. We have the stage crew. Play That Goes Wrong has 8 speaking roles, and then it requires at least a few people to be sort of the backstage crew who, by doing their job right, everything goes wrong on stage because they're the ones who control the set breaking down and things falling off the walls and things like that. But we also decided to sort of up their participation by working on these sort of clowning pre-show and intermission routines that gives that group of people a chance to shine in front of the stage a little bit, because when they're shining behind the stage, we don't really get to see that they're doing a great job back there. So that's something. Corey had a background in clowning, and he's sort of taking charge on turning them into our versions of the clowns. So both shows have, tremendously fun elements in them with a lot of clowning and antics and silliness, to get people laughing through the winter blues.
I shouted it out before, but I'll point out again, something that I really love about Brian's approach to the work for Powerhouse is asking, why do this show? What can we bring to it that hasn't already existed out there in a production that folks have seen or that you can go stream or that you can read about? And he's always finding a way to go ahead and bring that new element. I think for a lot of people, and I want the audiences to go ahead, hear this. That Shakespeare is good, but it's not necessarily your thing. It's kind of like a vegetable, right? Someone tells you like, you should eat broccoli or you should eat Brussels sprouts. And you're like, yeah, of course. But also I hate eating broccoli and Brussels sprouts. But what I want to point out is that this is not a steamed broccoli production. These are not your lunch line Brussels sprouts, right? You take a Brussels sprout and then, you pan roast that and you put a little sprinkle of cayenne and a drizzle of maple syrup on there. And like, now you've got something that you've never tasted before. You blacken the broccoli, you get that smoked paprika, you get a squeeze of lemon, and then suddenly you're saying, wait a second, why did I think I hated broccoli? Well, it's because someone's been steaming it and slopping it on your plate. And that's no shade to those folks who have done, Shakespeare for years and years in maybe a traditional fashion. I hope that everybody tackles it, whether they think they're offering gourmet or not. But our goal is to go ahead and take this thing and to elevate it for the experience of the actors and the audience. So I say, come get a heap of vegetables with us. We promise that you'll want seconds.
That's a really important point Joel just made about, we look at it in both ways. Can we make this fun and exciting and new for the actors as well as for the audience? I mean, we serve two masters, right? We're community theater. The actors are our customers in the same way that the patrons are our customers. And when we're looking at a piece, we're like, how do we make it exciting for the actors and challenge them? But also in a way that it's something that our audience will hopefully want to see.
Yeah. Joel, clearly you know a little bit more than your average bear on the street about cooking, theater, Shakespeare. Tell us and our audience a little bit about your background. I think they're curious.
I am fortunately an English teacher who has had years of amazing experience collaborating with artists who are so much smarter and so much more ambitious and skillful than I am. I've been able to just, chase the tails of their stars and learn along the way and grow and have so much fun doing it. For years, I've taught these plays, whether it's been, some of your stalwarts in the curriculum, your Romeo and Juliets and Hamlets and Macbeth, or the Scottish play if you're listening to this in a rehearsal setting, in a theater space. But then also a lot of the lesser known ones. Back during COVID, I had a really unique and exciting experience, to be invited into a virtual Shakespeare troupe, that was run, by theaters based out of, New Hampshire and Brooklyn. And then that invited in actors from literally around the globe. So 3 times a week, we were rehearsing and then presenting a live, streamed on YouTube, Zoom rendition of literally every one of Shakespeare's plays, and then some extras that we threw in by like Christopher Marlowe. And it was incredible to be collaborating with folks who were across the pond and were over on the West Coast. And here I was at 5 p.m. Eastern time, and there were others who had stayed up, so that they could be performing in London. And then we had folks just wrapping up work, over in Texas and beyond. And just being in a space where we got to engage and ask questions and laugh, but also just trust ourselves, like trust your gut, run with it. Don't overthink it, right? Don't overwork it. Because a lot of times folks approach Shakespeare and they think, oh man, but you gotta, right? It's like looking at, an MC Escher painting or something. Or like, it can't be figured out. No, it's not impossible. It's a play. Go play. So in that work right there, between the scholarship of, being a teacher, studying Shakespeare in grad school, and then being able to put it up on its feet, presenting it on Zoom, or, for years I've performed Shakespeare in bars, in parks, in bookstores, and in a bunch of unconventional settings. It kind of demystifies the work, and allows you to realize that this is a playground. And there are a lot of pieces that you pick up and you realize there's a right way to do this thing. And sometimes the playwright is really strict in giving you the instructions on this is how you perform my play. Don't mess it up. And Shakespeare does not do that. And I don't know if that's because he trusted the actors as much as he did, or maybe because he had a limited budget on quills and ink, back in the day. But thank goodness, he's given us so much free reign. And now this exists also in the public domain. So it really is the chance for, a theater artist, and even better, a theatrical team, to pick up the work and run with it. So I've had the privilege of both studying and learning on my feet for years and years. I love that I get to bring it into my classroom every year, when I teach my students, primarily freshmen, some of these plays. And then when I get to show up in the rehearsal space, it really does feel like someone just dropped me off and now like the jungle gym is waiting for me.
Well, great. I know I'm more jazzed to see these plays than when we started, and that's always a good thing, but I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there. You've been listening to New Hampshire's Powerhouse Theatre Collaborative's latest Voice of the Actors podcast, and we've learned about 2 novel and exciting live theater upcoming productions this winter. A Midsummer Night's Dream plays February 13th through the 15th, right in time for Valentine's Day, and I'll be bringing my beloved to see it, at Central New Hampshire's Colonial Theatre at 609 Main Street in beautiful downtown Laconia. And The Play That Goes Wrong plays March 6th through 8th, March 11th, and March 13th through 15th at the Winnipesaukee Playhouse at 33 Footlight Circle in Meredith, New Hampshire. Yes, Brian?
It's March 12th through 15th, nothing on the 11th.
Oh, I thought the 11th you had added a show, but it was the 12th?
It was the 12th we added, yeah.
Aha, my bad. Thank you for correcting that. And now a big thank you to today's guests, Joel Awakowicz, director of Midsummer and Powerhouse co-founder and director of The Play That Goes Wrong, Brian Halpern. Thank you, guys.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thanks for having us on the audience.
Remember, tickets go on sale now, I should say, at the Powerhouse Theatre Collaborative and Colonial Theatre websites, as well as at the box office in Laconia. Go to these original sites for your tickets, not overpriced imposters. And also, get involved yourself as an actor, behind the scenes, or a supporter of the many upcoming Powerhouse Theatre Collaborative productions. Until next time, we appreciate you joining us. Thanks.